Then we saw the Senate, a real milestone when Schumer brings along a dozen Senate Democrats. Suddenly, if you notice, the veto threat got changed to "we're highly concerned, but we're not going to veto it." So I think Biden's also having to get a sense of where the party's at. You had some folks who were highly critical in the Senate. I'm not going to point anybody out, but I think you know. And you had some folks in the House who've been critical, and then you have some folks who've been proponents. Now, we didn't get all the Republicans voting for FIT Act either, by the way. We had a few of them vote no as well. And there's a generational aspect to this.
This content is brought to you by BitGo, which is one of the top crypto custodians in the crypto industry. BitGo works with many big companies and brands, such as Pantera Capital, Bitstamp, and Bitcoin IRA. Nike also selected BitGo to power its wallets for its NFTs. And BitGo has many great services, such as hot wallets, custodial wallets, self-managed cold wallets, and NFT wallets. Many institutions trust BitGo with its top-level security and incredible services, such as being able to deploy your capital while it's in custody, which includes lending, borrowing, trading, staking, DeFi access, and more. If you'd like to learn more about BitGo, please visit bitgo.com, link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and with me today is Congressman Darren Soto, who's a Democrat out of Florida. Congressman Soto, great to have you back on.
Thanks, Tony, for having me. Obviously, this is an area of keen interest for myself and others in Congress, so appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The other day, I saw you tweet out about the Consumer Safety Technology Act, which was a bill you worked on. It passed the House, and it involved blockchain, AI, and much more. Tell us about this bill and who worked with you on it.
Sure. So I get to serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee. We have oversight over the Federal Trade Commission and work on a lot of consumer issues. So the bill provided for both Commerce and the Federal Trade Commission to provide recommendations and report on how we can protect consumers in blockchain, including cryptocurrency, but all types of blockchain uses, as well as how we promote innovation. You know, one of the big struggles is we're waiting to get a overall regulatory scheme together, which obviously the FIT Act that we'll be talking about a little bit is trying to attempt to do. We're trying to engage the agencies more. The bill also provided for the Federal Trade Commission to be authorized to use artificial intelligence to track fraud and injuries online to help protect consumers as well. You know, the crooks have AI, so now the cops on the beat need AI too. So important movement in both consumer protection online and in the blockchain space.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that because we need the balance of protecting consumers as well as, you know, fostering innovation and creating jobs and things here in the United States. But certainly protecting consumers is a big aspect because, like you said, well put, that crooks are using these technologies to try to take advantage of people. So I think that's certainly, this is very timely. So the bill passed the House. What's the next step? Is it going to the Senate?
Absolutely. And they would have to have passed the exact same identical bill for it to go on to the president. It's not unusual for these bills to bounce back and forth once or twice as the Senate determines what they want in the bill as well, and we negotiate. So they're doing their work, and we're working with Senator Ben Ray Lujan and a few others in the Commerce Committee and the Senate on this bill.
Now, I know generally in the Senate, no standalone bill makes it, you know, through all the way. It usually is attached to a larger bill. Are you looking to do something like that? Is there another big bill in the Senate that you know of that this can be attached to?
Most likely with a bill like this, that it's an important committee bill in Commerce, which is one of the most important areas we work on in the Congress. It would either get attached to an appropriations package or an omnibus at the end of the year, which is kind of an addition of multiple bills into one bill. And so that's not unusual, and that would be the most likely way it would pass. But it nonetheless has the same effect of being new law when it's passed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and this is a question that's related to the upcoming topics around the FIT21 bill. Look, summer's coming up. There's an election, of course. Do you think anything makes it through the Senate this year, whether it's crypto regulation bill or the Consumer Safety Technology Act, or is this more of a 2025 thing?
So if it was 3 weeks ago, I would have said it's completely stalled. But we've seen some new life in the Senate, especially after the SAB 121 bill drew, I believe, 11 or 12 Senate Democrats, including Leader Schumer. And so that tells me the Senate is now open for business on looking at some of these reforms that are coming out of the House. As you know, I'm co-chair of the blockchain caucus in the House, so I work a lot on these issues with Josh Gottheimer, Tom Emmer, Warren Davidson, Jake Alstenkloss, Richie Torres, Chair McHenry, obviously a bunch of different champions in this area, among others. And so we think with that vote, it gives us a better chance. Now, it may not be before the election, but before the end of the year. And we're hopeful there'll be at least a hearing on it, and either the Senate coming up with their own version or taking up the House version for a committee vote sometime, hopefully before the election. Either way, I think we're going to get some movement after the election. In fact, my old deputy ledge director, Bill Rockwood, who worked on a lot of these blockchain issues with me, now works for Senator Gillibrand. So we have a real great partnership going between Senator Gillibrand's office and ours, and working on some issues. And I know you're also watch out for the New York and California delegations. New York did not become the financial center by shunning up and coming financial markets, and California didn't become a center of innovation by ignoring innovation like blockchain. So I do think those delegations are starting to turn. Obviously, I'm from Florida, and I lead the way with a lot of Floridians supporting this on both sides of the aisle. I come from an area where a lot of in Orlando, international tourism is huge. So using cryptocurrency for vacations and travel agents and all these different things become important because we have international businesses, and then remittances are really big in Central Florida. A lot of folks who are first generation who are sending money back to their family members in other countries for an economically efficient cost. So all of us have a stake in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I met Bill Rockwood a couple of weeks ago down in DC, and a great guy. And he told me about, obviously he worked for you and so forth. Um, Congressman Soto, we saw some very interesting things over the past 3 to 4 weeks where Democrats working with Republicans repeal SAB 121, as you mentioned, and in the House passed the FIT21 crypto regulation bill. Now, there are some who had made crypto a bipartisan issue, made it very much about politics. But surprisingly, Democrats ignored that and working with their colleagues to get this through. What do you think caused that shift or that urgency all of a sudden to get things through?
Well, I think people understand that there has to be some regulatory scheme put in place, some legislative certainty. We see all these crypto firms spending all this money on legal, and I say that as a lawyer, right? We don't want firms that, if you're spending half your money in legal, that is not a recipe for success. We need more certainty. We also see, ironically, Europe, by putting in regulations, is becoming a more attractive venue because of certainty. Even though it may be, some of those may be burdensome, at least you know what you're getting. And so a lot of people are starting to realize what I've been saying for many years now, being a leader in this area, that we need to get some regulatory certainty in place. If we want to add to it over time as the industry continues to progress, we can do that, much like the big battles we're having over social media companies right now on the internet with Section 230, which deals with their limited liability. That cryptocurrency and blockchain generally will evolve over time, but we need something on the books right now because we have agencies running amok. You have the SEC and the CFTC battling it out over who has jurisdiction. Not much law there to give them any direction, and that's led to just a catch-22 situation. So I think people are realizing FIT Act is a good bill. Maybe they support it. Maybe they want to at least move the ball rolling, but a lot of people cast their vote that day. And Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi played a big role. The worst kept secret in Washington that morning was that she was looking to vote for the bill. And you saw some key New Yorkers like Chuck Schumer last week support or 2 weeks ago now, support the SAB 21 repeal. So again, watch out for some of these very Democratic rich states to step up because of innovation and because of financial industries. And me, I work on a lot of technology issues. In addition to crypto and blockchain, I work on artificial intelligence, as you mentioned already, autonomous vehicles, internet privacy, drones and airspace, all the things that you can imagine, and then some, quantum computing. So I'm a big believer that the United States needs to embrace technology, create a regulatory framework that has that careful balance that we're talking about, and ensures innovators stay here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And Congressman Soto, I want to thank you because I've been here for years and I've seen you working on bills and putting forward bills, working with your colleagues like Congressman Warren Davidson and so forth before any of these things were in the spotlight. I remember going back to 2019, 2020, and so forth. So I appreciate all the work you've been doing. Um, Oh, I did want to ask you though, as we have members, excuse me, Democrats in the House and the Senate who are working to get, these bills and these things through, there's still the perception that the Biden administration seems to be very against crypto. And this is playing out where you have presidential candidate Donald Trump on the Republican side saying, I'm the pro crypto candidate, and it's becoming this election themed issue now. What are your thoughts on that? And do you see maybe the Biden administration coming out and being more clear on their stance and putting the politics aside with this issue?
Well, first, President Biden put out an executive order asking for all the agencies to give them feedback on regulation of blockchain and specifically cryptocurrency. That was something that didn't occur under the prior administration. That was one of the things we've been begging them to do since the last administration. And we saw President Biden at least move the ball forward with an executive order. Some of the paralysis has been that Congress has not acted either. We're just seeing my bill pass, which is a relatively modest bill on blockchain, pass just a week before the FIT Act and SAB 121 passed. So Congress is also has the onus to move this along. The other thing I'd say is that we're seeing before our eyes that the Biden administration assessing Democratic support in the House and Senate and evolving themselves. So when SAB 21 repealer came out, they had initially issued a veto threat. You had multiple of us on the Democratic side vote yes for the bill because we thought it would hurt cryptocurrency from working with regulated financial institutions, right? When we want you all to be integrated into the whole financial system, very important to make sure that it's not treated any differently than other types of investments. And so then we saw the Senate, a real milestone when Schumer brings along a dozen Senate Democrats. Suddenly, if you notice, the veto threat got changed to we're highly concerned, but we're not going to veto it. So I think Biden's also having to get a sense of where the party's at. You had some folks highly critical in the Senate. I'm not going to point anybody out, but I think and you had some folks in the House who've been critical, and then you have some folks who've been proponents. Now, we didn't get all the Republicans voting for FIT Act either, by the way. We had a few of them vote no as well. And there's a generational aspect to this. A lot of people who are more comfortable with fintech happen to be some of the younger members, some of the more forward-thinking ones. And so that's also a barrier, uh, this generational gap that we see in the Congress. And that really is part of the learning curve. And one of the biggest things we have to do is continue to advocate positively, continue to fight for this to be a bipartisan issue, and present a vision that has that careful balance. But at the end of the day, we can't lose all these firms to Europe. Oh my God, that'd be awful when we are one of the biggest financial centers in the world. And believe me, Europe is our allies. We'll work with them, but we also want to make sure that we're getting fintech innovation here in the country too. So we're seeing an evolution from Biden as he sees where Democrats are evolving. He's walking right along with us, and he did put out the executive order that the prior president really didn't put out much on it. So we're working and we're making progress, and I'm proud about that.
Congressman, remind me for the last question here for you. When does Congress go on summer break? And I'm just I want to kind of get an idea what we might see in the coming weeks if when things wrap up as well for the summer.
So Tony, we have in district work periods,
Mm.
not break.
Okay.
And we will be in district for all of August, which is tradition. It gets hot in DC, even for a Floridian, if you could believe it. And then we'll return in September, and then generally in an election year, we are back home during October, and then we'll have some time about half of November and half of December in DC. So really, you got all of June, all of July left, which are mostly DC weeks. Then you'll have a district work period for August, and then some gap in September, and then half the time in both November and December. So we still have plenty of time to do our work left. And look, the House has been doing our work, and we're excited to see the Senate start moving on some of these issues.
Yeah, for sure. Congressman Soto, pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. And I appreciate once again all the work you've been doing over the years. I've been following it, of course, and obviously these things are in the spotlight. There's a level of urgency now, but I know you've been setting the table, the foundation, working with your colleagues over the years to get this done.
Happy to do it, Tony. And thanks for having me on the show.